It's my pleasure to introduce John Bowman. John is an Emmy Award-winning writer who's been writing and producing comedy for 32 years. He's written for Saturday Night Live, It's Gary Shandling's Show, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, In Living Color, Martin, Murphy Brown, and Frank TV, among others. He created Martin and received 2 NAACP awards and a People's Choice Award for his work there. He's currently a professor at USC's School of Cinematic Arts. In 2008, he received a Penn USA First Amendment Award for his leadership in the 2008 writer's strike. John, the floor is yours.
Okay, thanks, Todd. That's I didn't know I did all those things, but I guess I'll have to look back and congratulate myself. Was a Saturday Night Live writer, and that's how I began. That's how I began writing comedy, and I'd always thought about comedy for a long time. I went to business school with Todd. We were in the same class. But I spent, most of my 20s thinking, I don't know that I'm all that great a businessman. I better figure out another way to go in life. So I wrote stuff. I wrote it and I would send it to shows, like the David Letterman show. And finally got a job at Saturday Night Live. And I haven't looked back. I got that in 1989. I haven't looked back ever since. And I want to talk to you right now about how comedy writers go about writing jokes, how they think about it. It's going to be very analytical, which is, I'm a professor of comedy. Whenever you get analytical about comedy, you squeeze the joy and love out of it. But it's useful to think about. I'm going to give you sort of a structural, a paradigm of if you want to write a joke, how you can split it up into its component parts that makes it easier to think about it. So at some point, after I give this lecture, I'd like you all to take out a newspaper that you have nearby, look for topics, and write a joke. And then we'll try, see if we have time to read them in the last 5 minutes. So I'm going to talk about monologue jokes. This is the type that Johnny Carson would do, Jimmy Fallon, Stephen Colbert at the top of their show. The first 5 or 10 minutes, it's all monologue jokes. And if you can write a monologue joke, you can write any joke. The structure is the same from joke to joke. So I want to talk a little bit about humor theory here. There's 2 theories about joke writing. One is a surprise theory, that we laugh because something which initially confuses you on second thought makes sense. Now, here's a joke that David Letterman did once, so to explain this. The joke is, a couple got married at the Texas State Fair this week. It was sweet. The bride was wearing something old, something new, something fried, and something dipped in chocolate. So what is that? What is the structure of that joke? Well, you're sort of, you know something old, something new, something borrowed, and something blue. That's sort of the straight line. And they, instead of something borrowed, something fried, and something dipped in chocolate instead of blue. And of course, the joke there is, well, yeah, if they got married at the state fair, there's a ton of junk food. And that's the kind of food you find there. So that's the surprise theory of the joke. You don't see that coming. And then there's the superiority theory of jokes, which is that we laugh when we feel superior to someone else. Jay Leno used to do a segment on a show called Jaywalking, where he would walk around the streets of LA interviewing people and see what kind of reaction he got. And here's one of his jokes. He went up to somebody on the street and said, "What country borders the US?" And the person thought for a moment and said, "Australia. Oh, and Hawaii." And it got a huge laugh from the audience because, of course, this person is an idiot if he thinks that's true. And that's, you feel superior to the person who could utter that geography question. So monologue jokes are universal and topical. They're a little different from character jokes in sitcoms because they're about things that are happening in the news right now. And there's a formula to every monologue joke. There are 3 parts. First is a topic, and that's a news item that the joke is based on. The second is the angle, the direction the joke takes, and then the third part is a punchline. It's a prize thing that's at the end of the joke that completes the whole joke. And topics are usually picked up from news items in the newspapers. And that's what we used to do at Saturday Night Live, is we would just come in the morning and have a ton of newspapers on the big table, and about 30 of us would just sit around, read through it, and try to find things to make jokes out of. Now, here are 6 topics. I'm going to give examples of what topics can be. These are all from topics that were used by late night hosts during their monologues. 1, 2 Oklahoma women were caught shoplifting $2,000 worth of merchandise stuffed into the roll of their body fat. All right, that's an actual topic. That's something that Conan O'Brien found in a newspaper. Okay, and you say, all right, that I could probably get a joke out of that. Another topic, Charlie Sheen is on the show tonight to talk about his hit TV show, Anger Management. If you read that, you'd say, I bet I could find a joke somewhere in there. Anger Management and Charlie Sheen. Here's a third. Denny's has a new sandwich called the Fried Cheese Melt, which comes with deep fried mozzarella sticks inside grilled cheese. Well, right there. I mean, a fair number of jokes from stand-ups are about food. And this thing sounds kind of grotesque. So you definitely spend 5 or 10 minutes trying to find a joke to that. Another topic, this is one Letterman did. Bernie Madoff's underpants were sold at an auction. Oh, that's heaven for a joke writer. No, you can find something. Another one, another food joke. Carl's Jr. is selling a foot-long burger. David Letterman thought a joke there. Another one, a company in North Carolina is selling a $60 IQ test that people can give their dogs. All right, that's a Jimmy Fallon joke, and you know that if you spend 20 minutes on this, you can find something. So these are all topics. And what are the characteristics of topics? Well, one, they're factually true. All of these things happened. All of them are true. If you make something up, who cares? The other is they're not funny in and of themselves. If the topic is the joke, you've got nowhere to go. The third is that they can be stated in one sentence. That's really important. The shorter jokes are dependent on a certain amount of compression. People forget 6 or 7 or 8 words in where you started. So the shorter, the better. The fourth is that it has to stimulate interest, something people are talking about. The fifth is that the audience feels safe in letting you joke about it. I mean, every comic has their zone. Like Jerry Seinfeld would have a different zone. His stuff is pretty clean. If he started doing dirty jokes, you'd be a little bit offended. You wouldn't laugh. And the other is that your host is comfortable telling the joke and his audience is comfortable letting him tell it. That's a bond between the joke teller and the audience, that they're in a safe place and that it's something that, it's not going to be a joke that's going to make somebody awkward, that's going to make their date awkward, that they're going to feel they have to apologize for later on. So these are all above it. All these 6 things fit those characteristics. All right. So that's the topic. The next part is the angle. And that's a word or a phrase that leads to the punchline. And here I'm going to give you the angles for each one of these topics that I've just mentioned. The first is 2 Oklahoma women were caught shoplifting $2,000 worth of merchandise stuffed under the roll of their body fat. The cops said, all right, the cops said is the angle. That's going to spin this topic into a quick punchline. The next one, Charlie Sheen is on the show tonight to talk about his hit TV show, Anger Management. And here's the topic. In fact, they're adding a new character this year. We say, okay, that's going to be a 1 or 2 word quick punchline right at the end. That's what you want. A good angle. Here's Denny's has a new sandwich called the Fried Cheese Melt, which comes with deep fried mozzarella sticks inside grilled cheese. Here's the angle. It's so good, it'll have all your friends saying something. Quick 1-word thing. Bernie Madoff's underpants were sold at an auction. They were from, okay, that's going to go somewhere. Carl's Jr. is selling a 2-foot burger. You know it better as, all right, there's going to be something that's familiar. And that's a typical Letterman joke. He always likes to take the wind out of something that seems stupid and pretentious. The next, a company in North Carolina is selling a $60 IQ test that people can give their dogs. If you spend $60 on a dog IQ test, okay, something stupid that you're doing, it sounds like you may be the punchline here. So these are the angles for the jokes the writers took, but they're by no means the only ones available. There are usually a lot of different angles, and different stand-ups have their different favorite angles. And angles lead you to the punchline, and that's the third part. Punchlines are usually an incongruity that turns out to be true. And they have several characteristics. One, they're surprising. The audience doesn't see it coming. If the audience sees it coming, they're laughing before you get there. You always want to be ahead of your audience. And the other is that it's true, or at least it's true for the audience. And how do you know what the audience thinks is true? A lot of stand-ups, a lot of comics go on the road for a year to get 8 minutes of material. And it's trial and error. They try things out. They see what audiences laugh at. And that means, all right, this is something that the world of audiences responds to. And you're looking for a group of common knowledge and common conceptions of the world. So how do you manufacture punchlines? There's one way is you link 2 handles of the topic. You look at what are the most interesting handles. For 2 Oklahoma women were caught shoplifting $2,000 worth of merchandise stuffed into the roll of their body fat. The handles are woman, Oklahoma, $2,000, caught shoplifting, and body fat. And you say, well, all right, what are the most interesting? I would say caught shoplifting and rolls of body fat are the two things. So you think about, all right, what can I spin off of caught shoplifting and rolls of body fat? What you do then is you brainstorm a list of what I call associations for each topic. What comes to mind when you think of each handle? For caught shoplifting, you might think of police, crime planning, security cameras, stolen merchandise, phrases like you have the right to remain silent, phrases like we can do this the easy way or the hard way, etc. For rolls of body fat, you'd think of obese, overeating, sweaty, disgusting, size extra large, clothing that's too small, etc. And now you try to link these associations to form a truth. You spin associations together and you see what fits. You can make columns and think, how can I yoke these things together? And the ones chosen by the joke writer for this were, we can do this the easy way or the hard way, and disgusting. And this formed the final joke. Two Oklahoma women were caught shoplifting $2,000 worth of merchandise stuffed into the roll of their body fat. The cop said, we can do this the easy way or the disgusting way. And, well, that's true. It would be sort of disgusting to go through rolls of body fat. There's no question of that. That was a Conan O'Brien joke. So that's a truth. Now, this was a good angle to that, specifically to a phrase, the cops use, the easy way or the hard way. Using phrases and subverting phrases is a big part of actually doing monologue jokes. There are other things that they could have done. You could have said two Oklahoma women were caught shoplifting $2,000 worth of merchandise stuffed into the rolls of their body fat. Luckily, they were arrested before they could use the merchandise, thong bikinis. Now, that was another joke that another writer on the show pitched, but it's a little, objectification, a little demeaning. It's not as funny. It's not as surprising. So they used the first one. That got a pretty good laugh. Okay, so that's one way of thinking of punchlines. The second way is linking it to pop culture. Something in the air, and that's where you think something in the air that everybody knows or everybody's talking about. Now, Charlie Sheen is on the show tonight to talk about his hit TV show, Anger Management. Now, the obvious thing there is anger management. That's what the joke's going to be. And you think, all right, who in our culture is most known for being angry right now? And there's always a lot in American culture. And also that you can joke about safely. So at the time this joke was written, and I don't know if any of you remember this. I know we've got a lot of sports fans here. But when it was written, I don't know if you remember Rutgers coach Mike Rice, who was in the news. He was screaming at his ball players, bouncing balls off of their head. And it was in every newscast at night. It was just appalling to see this coach abuse his players. So that was in the news at the time of this joke. So the final joke was Charlie Sheen is on the show tonight to talk about his hit TV show, Anger Management. In fact, they're adding a new character this year, Rutgers coach Mike Rice. And that got a huge laugh from the audience because you don't see it coming. It's a basketball coach in a TV show. So it was an association tied to a current event. So there was another angry person in the culture at that time, and that was Alec Baldwin. And I don't even remember if there was that one telephone conversation that he had with his daughter that was, again, just an appalling, egregious moment in his life, among many. So you could have said Alec Baldwin, but it's not as surprising as Mike Rice, because Alec Baldwin is an actor. Mike isn't. So both things are true, but Mike Rice is a bigger surprise. And surprise is always a big element of telling a joke. Okay, punchline maker number 3, you ask a question about the topic. You query your topic, saying who, what, where, when, why, and how. So if you have, Denny's has a new sandwich called the fried cheese melt, which comes with deep fried mozzarella sticks inside grilled cheese. And the question is, you query that topic. What are people saying about it? So the associations you have are, well, you have fried cheese melt, which you could think of things like a heart attack, defibrillator, sub-association, the word clear, which you use during heart attacks. So finally, this was a final joke. Denny's has a new sandwich called the fried cheese melt, which comes with deep fried mozzarella sticks inside grilled cheese. It's so good, it'll have all your friends saying clear. All right, that was a final joke, and that is it's a little bit of a surprise because clear is a sub-association of defibrillator, and also it's good because it's one word. So that joke got a big laugh. Another question you could have done, you could query something else. What else comes with it? Because food in restaurants frequently comes with 1 or 2 or 3 different items. He was the joke writer for this, submitted this joke too. Denny's has a new sandwich called the fried cheese melt, which comes with deep fried mozzarella sticks inside grilled cheese. It goes really well with their other new item, the Grand Slam bypass. So pretty much everybody knows Denny's has a Grand Slam. So there's another joke that you could have done. Both of them are dealing, and this is kind of frequent. Horrible food causing bad things is a fairly common topic among late night TV shows because there's a lot of it out there. Punchline Maker 4 is words have many multiple meanings. They can sound like other words. So you go through your topic sentence and see, is there a phrase or another word that sounds like this that I could use? So here's what one joke writer used for Bernie Madoff's underpants were sold in an auction. So here you have two handles, Bernie Madoff and underpants. And your Bernie associations, of course, were cheat, fraud, scam artists. Underpants associations are briefs, tighty-whities, jockey, Fruit of the Loom. And the joke writer said, wait, fraud kind of sounds like fruit a little bit. So here's his final joke. Bernie Madoff's underpants were sold in an auction. They were from Fraud of the Loom. It's okay. It's not a great joke, but David Letterman delivered it, and he's got a great delivery, so it got a huge laugh. All right, Punchline Maker 5, visualize the topic. If the previous example is a play on words, you can also play on images. So for Carl's Jr. is selling a foot-long burger, and you think, all right, what would that look like? What would a foot-long burger look like? Well, meatloaf, I guess. And then you try to find the angle that flows to meatloaf. So here was Letterman's joke. Carl's Jr. is selling a foot-long burger. You may know it better as meatloaf. And yep, sure enough, that one word, that's exactly what it is. And that's a very Letterman thing where he would just say, here's what's really going on here. We all know what this is. Now, another visual example here. And this was another news item that happened a few years ago. It's rumored that Shaq and his girlfriend are engaged. When he proposed, Shaq got down on one knee and said, hey, you down there, will you marry me? Now, there's the image, of course, of giant Shaq and probably a much smaller woman. It got a reasonable laugh. Punchline Maker 6 is you state the obvious about the topic. Your punchline is pretty much what the audience is thinking. So you have this topic. A company in North Carolina is selling a $60 IQ test that people can give their dogs. And, when the writer read this, he said, are you kidding me? I mean, who would buy that? So you have a handle IQ test, association measures intelligence, which then leads to the final joke. A company in North Carolina is selling a $60 IQ test that people can give their dogs. If you spend $60 on a dog IQ test, then maybe you should take that IQ test. So that got, again, a reasonable laugh. So this is it. This is in its barest form. This is how you think about how you structure, how you break down news items and try to deliver a joke. And you pour through the news. You try to find good topics. And topics usually you find that if it's a good topic, 4 or 5 people will have chosen the same one because it lends itself more easily to a joke. And initially, I'm breaking this down in this way. It sort of becomes second nature. If you do it for a few years, if you write a joke every day, the grooves in your brain will become, pretty much aligned with how joke writers think. But it takes a lot of practice. I think joke writing is the hardest part. It's a really hard part of comedy writing. Even sketch writing was easier for me on Saturday Night Live than writing jokes for Dennis Miller, which is really what I started out doing, because it's you're trying to surprise people. You're trying to do something that hasn't been done before, or that is a truth that people haven't really thought of until you've said it, and then it becomes clearly true. So I'm going to put you through a little bit of punishment right now. And see if you can spend 10 or 15 minutes going through the newspaper, finding a topic, and write one joke. And then we can all come back in 10, 15 minutes and read them to each other. If everybody's okay with that. How do you feel?
That'll be interesting. Could we do it as a group exercise?
Sure. You'd have to first find it. If you're all reading from the same newspaper, you could find a topic.
Well, I've got one.
All right, great.
Let me try this. This was in the news this morning, I think. And I'll read the first I'll read a line. This is coming out of the Washington Post. At a routine civil forfeiture case hearing in Texas's 394th Judicial District Court, Presidio County Attorney Rod Ponton accidentally signed on with the cat filter, making the flummoxed attorney look like an adorable kitten. So they were doing a hearing by Zoom, and somehow this lawyer was talking, and it was a cute kitten that was his image.
Right. No, I saw that. I saw that video this morning. It was pretty cool. Well, that's something you could probably assume that everybody's seen in America. And what you'd want to do is really shorten the premise down.
Yeah.
You know, and you would say, hey, you know, Jay Leno was famous for saying, hey, did you see this? Did you see this in the news today? You see this? It's on TV in the morning. And you just say, did you see this, you know, this civil proceeding in a legal case where a man accidentally put on a cat filter? And then your joke would be something related to cats. Some wordplay. Meow is a common thing that come with cat jokes. What do you think? Did everybody think of anything?
Kathy, go ahead.
He was there to deliver the muse.
Very good.
Nice.
The judge said it was appalling.
There you go. No, that's, you know, cat jokes are always cat wordplay.
Something about the opposing attorney being a dog or using a dog filter.
Went to object, he said meow.
I'm trying to now. You know, the thing that I would try to think of is legal terms combined with a cat term. Pleading the fifth, objecting, damages,
Contempt of court.
Yeah.
Contempt of cat.
But you can see, I mean, this is
my day job.
But this is what you would do. You'd sit in a room and you'd think, all right, what are all these things that I can do? Now, right now, of course, every late night TV show is going to be obsessed with this impeachment shot. So what every, you know, and it's something that there's something so you can't really joke about the thing itself. You could joke the things that appear to be topics is Republicans not convicting no matter what they see, you know, sort of a foregone conclusion. The Trump attorneys were, I guess, I didn't see it all, but apparently they weren't particularly effective. And you might look for a joke there. Or you might want to say, hey, you know what, I'm tired of Trump. Let's move on. I think that's...
Wayne, go ahead.
Michigan's top Republican calls U.S. Capitol attack a hoax. That's from NPR.
Right. Another hoax was Ohio State's victory. You know, or something like that.
How about for the attorney? The attorney cataloged a list of charges.
That's good.
Jenya, you had your hand up.
Well, I was thinking about Stephen Colbert and his use of James and the Giant Peach, only the play on words about every segment about the giant impeach.
Mm-hmm.
Donald and the Giant impeach. Yeah, go ahead. Then Kathy.
John, most of the jokes I learned when I was young and I loved, I can't tell anymore, but never mind.
You can tell us, you're safe.
Well, my wife and I love to look at the New Yorker challenge every week.
Oh, yeah.
You're given a visual and the responses are so different. Do you ever do those?
You know, I have a friend who's actually a Simpsons writer he's won that 2 or 3 times. They're brilliant. I mean, I have to say, it's like you're crowdsourcing material, but you know, I think they always find like 3 amazing punchlines.
And so different.
Yeah, all of them different.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think that's a great exercise in how something that's very personal to you, you know, can be great, but something that's going to be different and personal to somebody else is also great. That's sort of the great thing about joke writing.
Kathy.
I was just wondering, how much leeway do you have as a writer of jokes when you're dealing with these talk show hosts?
That is an excellent question. And I just did a lecture on this last night to my class. And you have to conform yourself to the personality and comfort zone of your host. You know, I had a friend of mine wrote for Johnny Carson. And he actually ended up, you know, writing for The Simpsons, you know, much more sort of cutting edge and progressive show than Johnny Carson. And he said he was really frustrated by, you know, the Johnny Carson wanted to play it safe, no political stuff at all. He didn't want to go out there. He had a sense of his audience as being, you know, middle of the road and somewhat square. Jay Leno had the same thing. So you can only write jokes. You pitch them. Like my friend would write 60 jokes every day, submit them to Johnny, and Johnny would look through it and go, no, this isn't me. I don't like this. This is a sex joke. It's too offensive. Oh, here's something about food, you know, something that's relatively safe. So you have to really know, your host. And then I have a friend who writes for Samantha Bee, and she's aggressive and in your face and a feminist. And if he doesn't push her hard, she's disappointed in him. So it's all a matter of matching the host's expectations from what you think your audience is going to like too, and what they want to hear her say. And Samantha's audience wants her to be loud and aggressive, like the way Colbert's audience wants catharsis from Trump, or they did. I don't know if they do anymore. But Colbert's audience was like a group of people, an audience of people that hated Donald Trump, wanted to make sure that other people hated him too. And Colbert was kind of the ringleader of these people who, when he told a joke, they all laughed. No, he didn't convert anybody, but he was preaching to the converted. So yeah, you have to be really, really aware of that. That's a really good question.
Nan.
This one needs tweaking, but how about Trump's impeachment attorneys are worth every penny for which they won't be paid?
That's a really good joke. And that was just based on the common knowledge that he stiffs everybody. And also that they were terrible. And that matches up with your punchline. They won't be paid. So that's great. That's a good joke. Submit that. Get a fax machine. Send that over to.
What's a fax machine? What's
fax machines? That was the old days. That was what people. Every host had, 8 or 9 friends on retainer who would fax them, 10 jokes every day. And that's how a lot of comedy writers get started out. Was a fax machine hooked up to somebody they knew.
Peg, did you have something?
No, I was just telling Nan that she can quit her day job now.
Yeah, no, you're on a roll. One good joke.
I do have a question, John. If the fax is obsolete, how do kids get started today if they want to be a comedy writer?
It's hard. You have to first of all, if you're doing a late night show, if you want to become a late night show writer, you have to live in New York or LA, and you have to try to bump into somebody or run into somebody. You have to be pretty aggressive. And usually you go to the comedy clubs, and a lot of comedy writers will be there, and you try to find somebody and say, hey, could you look this stuff over? Here's 5 or 6 jokes that I wrote. I mean, that comedy writers are a club, and they tend to all sort of know each other, and they hang out at certain places, and you can find out where they hang out. and you can hand them something and hope that it goes somewhere. But it takes, most of the people that I know who broke into it, it took 5 or 6 years. And that time is mostly spent just trying to find, how do I get this to people? How do I get this submitted to people? It's a long road. My students at USC who are at the School of Cinematic Arts, usually takes them 4 or 5 years before they get their first job, and they're waitressing or, working as salesmen in the meantime. So it's tenacity. It's something that rewards tenacity.
But John, they've also for years would talk about the fact that there wasn't any diversity, that it was mostly white male driven club. Is that still the case?
It's less so than it used to be. And that's because every corporation has made a real conscious effort to diversify their staffs. And I would say right now, it's maybe 40% white men. Well, it used to be, pretty much 90%. And it's because ultimately it's going to reflect America. And as America changes, so does comedy. And if you have people who can't write for an Asian voice or for a Black voice or for a female voice, you're not, I as a writer, I'll say I could write for all of these voices, but it certainly helps to be Black or be female or be Asian if you're going to write for that. So that's less so than it used to be. Shonda Rhimes, who employs half of TV right now, is Black herself, and she makes damn sure that her staffs are diversified too.
Jed.
Yeah. So do you ever do any of those guy walks into a bar jokes, like John Kerry walks into a bar and the bartender says,
why the long face?
Why the long face? That kind of.
Well, there are those kinds of setups are not as popular as they used to be.
Right. Well, I'm not as young as I used to be.
But they're actually great jokes for tweeting.
Yeah.
It'd be a little bit harder to do that as a monologue writer, but those are great tweet jokes. I'm trying to think of. Oh, I can't remember.
David, did you have something?
Well, I was looking at, I was working on the Valley News college athletic director resigned. So Dartmouth athletic director resigned yesterday because he had canceled 5 women's sports teams. In related news, Dartmouth women's hockey coach said hooking would now be a major penalty. Not all.
That's all right. Play on words. Good.
Tried.
Well, you could also take that in the direction of, well, what's he going to do next? He's going to become the president of the WNBA or something like that. This is very topical locally, John, because Dartmouth got rid of some smaller teams like women's golf, men's golf. And 6 months later, after being challenged by a lawyer who said, you're not going to satisfy Title IX, all those teams are back. And 2 weeks later, the athletic director is retiring.
Did you expect the president or the trustees to go?
Yeah, right.
Well,
that comment came from a Dartmouth alum.
Well, here's something about comedy too. When you're writing for a local market, like let's say Hanover for Dartmouth, Bob Hope, who was obviously an extremely successful comic, what he would do if he were going to come to Hanover for a night, he'd send 4 or 5 of his best writers there for 4 days ahead of time, and all they would do is walk around the town, finding out what was important to people locally, who the mayor was, what the big issues were, and he delivered, right off the bat, 3 or 4 things that everybody in the town knew about, and he was a hero. They screamed. And that was how he made his career, how he started. He just had this insight that if you make jokes to people, and again, this is what they're familiar with, what's true to them, that's local, you can't lose. And they're called, like local jokes, and boy, it's hard to miss on a local joke because it's usually something that everybody in the audience knows about and feels the same thing about.
Hey,
I think I just disproved that.
No.
You got the right topic. You know, you got the right topic.
Just needed more work.
Hey,
every joke takes a good joke takes an hour. So you just need a little bit more work.
Hey, did you hear the Dartmouth College athletic director just retired? He was seen outside the field house fixing a flat.
All right, now I didn't see that coming. That's a wordplay joke right there.
John, we're getting towards the end here. I wanted to just ask you, since you worked on Saturday Night Live so long ago, what's your take on Saturday Night Live these days versus when you were there or as a comedy writer?
Well, I was there in the late '80s, and we had a great cast: John Lovitz, Phil Hartman, Dana Carvey, Mike Myers, Kevin Nealon. And we had a great writing staff. We had Senator Al Franken, Jim Downey, Conan O'Brien was a writer there. Bob Odenkirk from Better Call Saul was a writer there. He was my roommate. So it was a lot of, I thought, really, really talented people. And we were just, when I came there, the first thing that we did was write for the Dukakis Bush debates, and those got really famous right away. So for me, and it was my first job, it was intoxicating. I could never capture that particular mood or moment again. And you'd have the Rolling Stones there, doing a sound mix in a studio. People you'd never be. I could never afford a ticket before that. Now I could hear them for free and by myself. So it's hard for me to say. I mean, it is like if you're an alum of Saturday Night Live, it's like a college. You always watch it. Sometimes it disappoints you. Sometimes you cheer. Like I thought the Tina Fey stuff, I just loved. I wasn't as crazy about all the Trump stuff because I felt like he was too easy a target. And if you just kind of every week you're saying the obvious thing, Donald Trump is really dumb, which appeared to be what they were saying every week. At some point, it's all right. That may be true, but it's not a surprise. So that it's on the air at all to me is stunning because that's like 40 years. And it's something that has to reinvent itself because at some point people just get a little bit stale. But what Lorne Michaels always said was, well, people don't like it anymore because they're older and they don't get all the references. And that may be true somewhat for me. But for me, it's the stuff that I knew in high school in the 70s when I was watching the show. I love that stuff. It's not going to get better.
George Carlin, October 1975, the first host. I was watching it. Well, we're going to end it there, John. Thank you very much. We're going to have a comedy writing competition here at the Rotary Club.
Good. Just write some jokes. They keep you active and they're fun. And when you get a good one, it's like getting a good golf shot. You feel all right. That's it.
Thank you very much, John.
All right, everybody. Nice meeting you all.
Take care.